Just keep yourself unmuted, please. Thank you.
I can share my screen.
Yes. And just so you know, none of the meetings in the future will be like this. Unfortunately, when you mute everybody in the settings, you have to ask to unmute you. That's why you're having to do it this way. So this won't happen again in the meetings as we go forward.
Hello, everyone. We will be presenting on investigating the neural process behind different styles of meditation and yoga, an EEG study. Our researchers are Urvi, Sanvi, Daphne, Shreya, and Jahani. First, we'll give a brief intro about our project. Then we'll go over our methodology and the processes we are using, as well as where we're at and what our future directions will be.
Okay, so I will be talking about what EEG is and what is meditation. I will also be talking about the purpose of this research and our data from OpenNeuro. So first of all, EEG, which stands for Electroencephalography scans, are a non-invasive way to collect real-time signals and data from the brain. These signals can then be pre-processed and studied for conclusions. EEG data is collected through placing electrodes on the scalp, and these electrodes collect the data from multiple areas of the brain and can be collected through EEG caps and headsets. The electrodes can also be placed using the 1020 International System. This data enables studies to be reproduced by other scientists and researchers. The data is also collected from EEG scans that contain many aspects which are important in identifying whether there are abnormalities within it. It is important to pay attention to whether to the different rhythms presented in the data. Some frequent rhythms in the data are alpha, mu, beta, theta, and delta rhythms. Artifacts can also be present, and these are outside influences that can be cleaned out of the data when pre-processing. Common artifacts include jaw movement, blinking, and talking. Now, on to what exactly meditation is. Meditation is a mental practice which involves focusing the mind on a particular object, thought, or activity to increase awareness, mindfulness, and mental clarity. It is often used to promote relaxation, reduce stress and anxiety, and improve concentration to cultivate a sense of inner peace. There are various types of meditation, including mindfulness meditation, which involves being present in the moment and observing one's thoughts and emotions without judgment. Concentrative meditation, which involves focusing the mind on a particular object or sound, and contemplative meditation, which involves reflecting on a particular question or idea. Meditation can be practiced individually or in a group setting and is often used as a combination with other mindfulness practices such as yoga or deep breathing exercises. With regular practice, meditation can help individuals develop a greater sense of self-awareness, emotional regulation, and overall well-being. So our basis for the spark interest in different kinds of meditation and its effect on brain activity came from a research paper, Increased Gamma Brainwave Amplitude Compared to Control in 3 Different Meditation Traditions. In this paper, we learned that in recent years, there's been a growing interest in meditation, partly due to the development of new brain imaging technologies and the incorporation of mindfulness into psychotherapeutic and clinical interventions. Scientific publications on meditation have increased, showing that the beneficial effects of meditative practices on perception, cognition, and emotional processing and neuroplasticity. However, there's no consensus on the basic effects of meditation on EEG activity, as there are many different types of meditative practices. This study aims to examine whether there's a consistent difference between the EEG activity of meditation practitioners compared to non-meditators, and whether different meditation practices can be distinguished based on their effects on the EEG signal. The study focuses on 3 different meditation practices represented all around the world: mantra repetition, open monitoring meditation focused on body sensations, and open awareness meditation. The study includes an instructed mind-wandering task used as a control mental state. The research aims to determine whether there are differences in EEG activity between the different types of meditation and whether these differences can be attributed to state or trait effects. Overall, this paper is what allowed us to further investigate how different kinds of meditation can make an impact on EEG activity and the brain. With our own discoveries, we aim to contribute to the growing body of research in this area, leading to a better understanding of the effects of meditation for mental health and well-being. We are currently using data from OpenNeuro and are currently in the middle of post-processing data. This data was collected in Rishikesh, India. The study was conducted with 98 subjects who all were instructed to perform 2 meditation breathing tasks and 2 thinking tasks. Half the participants in the study started with a meditation task, while the other half started with a thinking task. All of the participants were instructed to sit either on the floor or a blanket and perform these tasks in a dark room. All of the data from our research has come from this experiment. Currently, we've been using this data and other technologies, which we will be talking about in more detail later on, and have been pre-processing the data to prep for later study. We're currently using this data to come to a conclusion as to why and how meditation affects the brain. This is an overview of all the participants who have participated in the study. The significance of this is that it allows us to separate those who began with thinking tasks or meditative ones.
I will be overviewing our methodology, which covers all the steps we're taking in our research. Before diving into the data portion of our study, we had to gain a lot of background knowledge in order to be prepared. We started out with learning the key elements of EEG, how it works, and the basic aspects of it. We then moved on to some of the things we may come across when pre-processing our data. We learned about channel locations and also the different rhythms we may come across. We also researched about SNR, which is signal to noise ratio, and is necessary to improve in order to eliminate the external and internal noises captured during a scan. We also studied ERPs, or event-related epoch, and learned about auditory and passive ERPs and how they are used for certain patients with certain conditions. With pre-processing, our main goal was to remove artifacts from our data. We talked about different methods and different pre-processing pipelines. We learned about the importance of BIDs and how it is a widely used system for file and data organizations. It is widely used because it makes it easier to handle data. It is becoming more and more important to properly cite and handle data from other people, and with that comes a lot of responsibility. Our last area of literature review was about combining different types of imaging. We talked about the various benefits and downsides of combining these types of scans. After all this in-depth review, we're ready to dive in our data. Even though we were ready to start processing our data, we needed some technology in order to do so. The first thing we needed to do was download MatLab. We also needed to download EEGLab from the SCCN website to be able to look at data. We use many resources like EEG Wiki and YouTube to research all of our knowledge gaps when starting out with MatLab and learning how to use it. We need to download the PDF files for any data we were looking at, and we got all of those from the data set on OpenEuro. Lastly, we need to be able to look at and understand the initial graphs of our data before any pre-processing. Two of these images show the channel locations on a subject and their 2D and 3D versions. The other two images visualize the channel time frequency and the channel spectrum maps. The pre-processing of our data goes through 6 major steps. The first one being importing our PDF files into MATLAB through a BIOS-like interface. We then turn on our channel locations on, or no other pre-processing step will work. We resample from 1024 to 256 Hertz so that we can view our data clearer. We also remove our DC offsets when viewing the channel data scroll. Then we filter using high pass at 1 Hertz. Lastly, we do automated channel rejection using MATLAB tools such as Clean Raw Data and ASR. Here's our channel data scroll before and after removing the DC offsets. Here's our channel spectrum maps before and after high pass filtering. Another step for pre-processing is ICA decomposition and rejection, which is a manual method of channel rejection. We first decompose our data through ICA, and then we look at the component maps and analyze every channel to decide whether or not to remove them. Typically, remove the ones that appear to have heavy artifacts. For example, the image to the right shows a signal only from the left ear, which would be an artifact, and we would flag it for rejection. Once we've completed flagging all the bad channels, we remove the components. Here's an example of all the component images that will show up after ICA decomposition. Our fourth step in the process is to post-process all of our data. We will be using SAVE, which is a Python code that separates the sleeping data and meditation data, which then further cleans our data. Why SAVE? The reason we need to use SAVE is because many subjects will become unconscious while they're meditating, which can then cause confusion and error in our analysis. So we use this code to remove any sleep data so that we can effectively analyze later on. The application we're using for SAVE is Jupyter Notebook. In this, we will implement a Python 3 code that we got from GitHub and use it to run all 50 subjects through a post-processing loop.
Now on to our progress. We are currently in the step of post-processing our data and are implementing SAVE into our data. We have finished pre-processing our 50 subjects, and now we're figuring out the Python code and SAVE using GitHub. We've also submitted our abstract to SFN and are waiting to hear back from them in July or August. Now our future directions. Our first goal is to post-process and clean the data of 50 subjects by running them through a Python loop. We also hope to get accepted into SFN in August and go to their actual conference in November, which will be held in Washington, D.C. Once we finish post-processing all the data, we will analyze it and look for concrete evidence that may point us to a finding. We'd like to acknowledge Sahar for her guidance, knowledge, and support, and we'd also like to recognize ASDRP for the amazing opportunity and resources to conduct research. Here are our references. Thank you, and do you have any questions?
Questions?
I think
If you have any questions, go ahead and raise your hand and I'll unmute you. Or you can put it in the chat. All right.
I think there's one question in the chat.
Is ICA similar to PCA?
I actually am not sure what PCA is, so I don't really know.
We haven't looked through PCA, so I'm not sure. Just Sahara, do you have any?
Hello. So ICA is independent component analysis and PCA is principal component analysis. And no, they're not similar. They have different mathematical equations behind it. So with independent component analysis, when you remove the noise, as it says, it clusters it into a form of the independent clustering component, and then it looks at the time series kind of correlation across those independent. With the principal component analysis, not necessarily they're independent. It can be using something like a KNN algorithm and do the classification of a component next to each other. But no, I mean, they're very different. But with EEG in general, we use ICA. With big data, kind of use PCA. But yeah, I mean, independent component analysis is like very common when it comes to EEG, just because of the noise. And because we want to make sure that it's the independent classification, so that we'll be able to kind of recognize the correlation and the activities of the brain across a different region. Okay, next question.
Someone asked, does meditation always lead to sleep-like brain activity, or only certain types of meditation?
That's actually what they're going to answer throughout their study, right?
Yeah, so that's what we are currently researching. That is what we're looking for in our study.
Not necessarily meditation always leads to sleep-like brain activities, and that's what we're doing. Like if they are focusing on a breathing, or they have a specific object to stare into, then it's not going to cause into sleep-like activities. But if they are doing, what is that Buddhism meditation? I keep on forgetting that. James, Sanvi, Urvi, do you remember that the Buddhism meditation name? It has a name. I keep on forgetting that.
Yeah, hold on, I can pull it.
Yes, that particular, we're trying to prove to detect, basically extract this sleep pattern from that kind of meditation. That's my assumption, that with that kind of Buddhism, I keep on forgetting, Tim will find it. That one is have a tendency to be more like a sleep-like.
Mantra repetition?
Yes, yes. I think so, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Should I go off the mute?